Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave and a bit of a different video today, another skill-based type video of which we're going to be going over the different purposes and types of indicators. So with that said, we'll waste no time. This one's going to be more or less short and sweet, but I do hope that it serves its purpose. So into our Google Documents we go, and the categories of indicators. So there's 4 different categories of indicators. Pretty much every indicator falls under something of this narrative, and that is 1, momentum indicators, 2, trend indicators, 3, volume indicators, and 4, volatility indicators. Now, with that said, all indicators are in some way, based off of a mathematical formula. It is just the different applications of these tools that make them relevant in a trader's arsenal. So with that said, what would be an example, or how would I define all these different types of indicators? Well, momentum indicators obviously measure the speed of trend, typically in like a leading fashion. Examples of these are going to be RSI, stochastic RSI, stochastics just in general, CCI, ADX, etc. There's hundreds of thousands of them, well, not just thousands of them, but quite a few, enough to keep you inundated with. Then we move on to trend indicators. What essentially defines a trending indicator? It measures the strength of a trend based off of like a former baseline, an average of price, typically speaking. And these are going to be your moving averages, your EMAs, your Ichimoku cloud, those sorts of things. Usually a lagging indicator, something that is used to confirm a trend. On top of that, we have our volume indicators, and that one's a little bit more self-explanatory, I suppose, as volume indicators essentially just measure participation within a particular movement. Now, the most obvious one is going to be like quite literally just your volume bars, and on top of that, you have the Chaikin oscillator, you have like OBV, those sorts of things are going to fall into that category. Then we move on to volatility indicators. Volatility indicators measure the rate of price movement, but here's the kicker with this: it's direction neutral, that is. And this is going to be like your average true range, your Bollinger Bands, your standard deviations, if you just want to take that on top price action. HPV will be in there as well. And that is going to wrap up the 4 different categories of indicators. Then we split them into 2 different types. The first one is going to be leading, and the second one is going to be lagging. Now, with that said, I've done a very basic, write-up right here of this, and you're going to notice that you can actually find indicators in both of these different, formats that actually can double up in essence. For example, in the case of leading indicators, you can get both leading volatility indicators and also lagging volatility indicators, just like volume as well, actually. However, trend typically comes in the lagging variety. Momentum is almost always going to be leading, and volatility will mostly actually be a lagging indicator if you're looking at like the ATR, STD, Bollinger Bands, that sort of thing. However, there can be instances where it is a little bit of a leading indicator as well. So now that we have all of that down, you can kind of see why, in general, I kind of poo-poo the idea of having a shit ton of indicators, because there's really not that much value in having a shit ton of indicators on your screen, because all you really need is indicators that come from each one of these categories at most, in my opinion, and ones that specifically complement each other in a trading plan. So obviously we've done the trading checklist, or the trading, what did I call the video? I forget what I called it, but it's in this series basically. And it went over like how to set up a trading plan and how to work through that. So what you can do here is you can kind of break it down into exactly what you want to use. And I'll probably record a video at some time to figure out like what type of trader that you are as well, because I think that is a more or less important thing to get good on within this game. Anyways, implementation in a trading plan. So we've kind of already touched on this, but basically we want to combine indicators that complement each other. And for example, we want to like pair our leading indicators with a lagging indicator to confirm a move. For example, you probably want to use, or it's very common, and you probably see it with myself as well, that if I'm looking at, on my main charts over here, as we typically reference, let me just get rid of all this. I have my moving averages, and then I have my momentum oscillators, which is going to be my Stokes, and that's going to be my RSI. And my Joule to a lesser extent as well. And these are essentially used, the momentum indicators, to I wouldn't say predict a move, that's the wrong terminology, but essentially as a leading indication to be aware of an impending move. And then the moving averages on top of that are used, at least in my system, to kind of confirm the trend as a lagging move. So I first look for the momentum oscillator to say, hey, warning, this could be happening. And then I look for my moving averages to say, hey, this is confirmed, get on the same side, or keep, your position, whatever it ends up being. So these can be used in both, for an entry and risk management way as well, if you want to get specific with it. But just a general understanding, I think you can likely work this out for yourself within the context of that trading plan that we gave out. I think it was like a week ago or so now. Another example right here, pair momentum indicators with volatility indicators. Obviously this one is is quite cut and dry. We want to see if we're looking at volatility indicators to kind of give us a heads up on when a move is maybe coming, then we want to pair it with something that's going to give us an idea on direction. So in this case, actually momentum indicators could be used. We could also use trending indicators as well. But basically, let's say that, we see that historical volatility percentile right here is incredibly low and we're looking for it to expand. Well, in this case, we do see that Bitcoin is quite literally in an uptrend. This is a 4-hour, and the moving averages tell us as Bitcoin's above all major moving averages right here. And what do you know? The next expansion phase, as notified by the HPV, is verified by our trend indicators. So very, very simple examples right here. But, I do think that this is really is relatively important, mostly because I see a lot of people putting on like fucking like hundreds of indicators, it looks like. Now, in my experience, I've been around some of the best traders maybe even in the world, probably in the world. I mean, these guys are special. And I've never met one who uses more than 5 indicators at a single time. And even then, the ones who typically do, some of them don't use any indicators, by the way, but some of them that do, the majority that do typically use 3 or less actually. And the idea is to use less, but use ones that complement each other, and then know those indicators inside and out. Get your reps in, get your experience in with them, and you'll naturally start to develop a more close understanding of how they work within your own system. Now, obviously, I have mine, and that could be relevant to you or not relevant to you. I mean, you can probably figure it out from my main charts right here. I like moving averages, EMAs specifically, but a little bit of SMAs as well. I like historic volatility percentile. I like my my Stokes and my RSI for short-term momentum right here, and more long-term momentum right here. Joule is just a more powerful confirmation tool essentially in the way that I use it. And then I use my Bollinger Bands over here, my Bollinger Bands over here. You can use average true range as well. It's completely fine. But something based off that metric, and that is going to get, the majority of what I want to be looking at. So I'm using all different types. And then of course, we have volume down here as well, as I want to see the participation in rallies, but a little bit less important in my personal system. So I really only am focusing on 3 different types, and that's it. And that's all that it really has to be. And if you can fit your trading plan within the framework of this, I'm sure that you'll have better results. The reason being because you want to be using these mathematically based indicators in order to get a greater understanding of what's going on. And that's going to allow you to see all the different sort of sides that are present within the market. And that leads to a just more well-rounded sort of trading plan. So with that said, I hope that this one serves you well, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.